So welcome back to the 𝗃𝗊𝗶𝗵 channel, and for this video you join myself and Martin down at the Linear Fisheries Tar Farm complex. Now I've come armed with my spod rod, smartphone mount and Deeper Chirp Plus 2 to come and have a little cast around some of the lakes on this complex and hopefully bring to you some of the features that are underneath the surface on these lakes. So yeah, without further ado, let's get this rod sorted, let's get casting out and see what we can reveal. Well, for our first example then of feature finding with the Deeper sonar, we've dropped onto Lake 6 and swim number 5. Now, this is a perfect example of a shallower, one of the shallower lakes on the complex, but one of the more weedier ones as well. So it's perfect for showing you how weed is represented on the scan and also trying to find those clear spots to fish amongst, because some of the weed out there is quite dense, the weed beds are quite big, so you want to try and find those cleaner areas amongst it to try and drop your rigs in and bait, and obviously try and get yourself a few bites. So I've got my Chirp 2 mounted to my spod rod, got my smartphone on my smartphone mount, and I'm literally just going to give it a cast out there. And in a single retrieve, we are going to see if we can find a couple of clear spots to fish amongst. Right, so I've just cast my Chirp 2 out, and thankfully for me, it looked like it landed on a clear spot straight away, but within just a very small turn of the reel handle, it's already started to reveal some weed as well. So it looks like there could be a spot beyond where I've just cast that, but for the moment I'm going to retrieve this sonar and see what we've got in front of us. Now it's apparent that the weed is a good 4 foot underneath the surface, and what we're trying to do is find a clear spot. So as you can see from the right hand side of my scan, that is real time. It's passing over that weed. You can see from underneath the weed there are specks of yellow where the sonar is attempting to obviously get a return from the lake bed, but the weed is so dense that yeah, it really can't make the lake bed out at the moment. So as you can see, it's nearly up to the surface, and that's visible just from looking out over the lake as well in places. So what we're trying to do is just find those clear spots amongst it to present a rig and some bait. Now a nice smooth retrieve will allow for a nice crisp clear scan. I'm just operating on a medium beam, 70% sensitivity, so it's giving me a nice clear scan, giving me a nice clear reading. As you can see, that weed is just not letting up. It's pretty much chocker in between me and where the sonar originally dropped. Starting to thin out a bit now, and it looks like we are coming into a bit of a marginal gully there, so that weed has stopped completely. As you can see from the right hand side, no more weed visible, and there's a nice yellow hard bottom and a very thin layer of purple above it, which could either be very, very low-lying weed or just a thin run of silt. But as you can see, we could easily present a solid bag, a rig, some bait on that and be fishing and not being out in that massive, all that weed out there, potentially getting a bite and not being able to get it back. And then as we come up the marginal slope, we start to see a bit more sporadic weed, but that is definitely presentable and that is definitely fishable, and that is only an underarm cast out there as well. So that is exactly what you want to be looking for when those big patches of weed stop and those nice glowing yellow bottoms start to appear. That is exactly where you want to clip up your sonar and then swap the sonar out for a lead, and you can just give it a little flick around and just get a feel for that drop. But that is a perfect spot, so you want to be looking for when trying to find spots within the weed. Right, okay, so we've dropped onto lake number 5, swim number 4, away from any of the other anglers, just to have a cast and see what we can find kind of underneath the surface on this lake. It's not a lake that I've fished before, so I don't know anything about it in all honesty. So again, we're going to give the Chirp 2 a cast, and we will see what it reveals. As you can see on the scan, it's a glowing yellow lake bed, so that indicates a really clean lake bed. Starting to come down another foot and a half now, edging nearer to that 11 foot. So it looks like we landed originally on a bit of a shallower spot. It's now starting to creep down to 12 foot again, with that really clean lake bed. Starting to drift down to more to the 14s, so it looks like there's a very gradual slope going up to a 9 foot area there, down into the 15s now. As you can see, there are no humps and bumps either, so it is really uniformed down there, apart from, like I say, that gradual slope to the area where we originally cast the sonar to. It is it's pretty much straight and barren down there. So you're looking to probably, although this scan doesn't really present much features, your feature is probably going to be your bait if you were fishing in this swim. There's nothing really to attract the fish to a certain area or a certain spot. You know, there's no clumps of weed or, like I say, no humps or bumps. It is pretty barren. And you're going to need to put a bed of bait down, I would imagine, and fish a few rods amongst it and see if you can build up a spot in that sense. And as you can see now on the right hand side of the screen, it's starting to come up the marginal shelf, which is relatively steep. You probably wouldn't want to present a rig on it. You could see your rig or your solid bag just rolling down that marginal shelf there and ending up just at the bottom of it. But it's now making its way up to my margin and underneath my feet. So just within that single cast, I can tell that we've got a shallower area from where we originally cast. It's sloped down gradually to a 15-foot area, bottomed out around 14 foot, and then the closer I brought it to me, it's come back up the marginal shelf. So straight away, I could put one on that 9-foot area. I could fish 5 foot deeper into the 14s and the 15s. And then if I wanted to, in which we've actually seen a couple of fish underneath our feet, fish at maybe at the bottom of the shelf, or even in the 5 foot water down left or right of our margin. So although the scans seem relatively barren, it is still actually giving you a handful of opportunities to fish to and try different things. Right, so we've come around to lake number 7, swim 11. Again, not one of the Tar Farm lakes that I've fished before. So whilst the swim was empty, we thought we'd jump in and just see what's going on underneath the surface. Now, from speaking to the angler next door, we've been told this one is quite deep. So we'll have a little cast and we'll have a look for ourselves. There you go, so that's gone out nice and smoothly. Right, so straight away then from the first drop we can see that it's dropped into 36, 37 foot of water. Now, I'd never dream of fishing in depths like that. I think you'd probably be looking at adjustable zigs, that sort of thing, to be fishing in those extreme depths. Again, it's revealing that it's just a really clean lake bed, nothing going on down there. What we're trying to find is obviously that shallower water, any sort of plateaus, raised areas, that sort of thing. So it's 37 foot going into the 36s now, so we're starting to venture up something by the looks of it. If you can see from the right hand side of the screen, it is starting to reveal some shelf of some sort. So it's up to 28 foot, so that's 10 foot difference straight away just from one scan. Just from one retrieve, I found an area halfway between where I originally cast that is at least 10 foot difference. Now again, from the right hand side of the scan, as you can see, the depth is going down, going into the 21s, the 20s, the 19s, the 18s. So we've got another hump on top of a hump as such. And then it starts to flatten off at the top of there, around the 15s, 14s. So there is there's three options there, really. Fishing right down in the bottom if you really wanted to in the 38-foot of water. You could drop it up into the 28-foot of water, or then you could fish the 15-foot and shallower, closer in type of water. So, you know, you can cover three spots really. The deeper water maybe with an adjustable zig. The mid water, it's around the 28-foot. You can maybe create a bit of a bait on, you know, a baited area on that patch, or you could fish kind of underarm distance and fish that much shallower water underneath your feet. And from what we've seen, the fish are definitely getting in and around our feet as well. So one cast, three options. I've pretty much mapped out what's going on out there. Like I say, with half a dozen more casts, you can really start to interrogate what's going on and build up a much bigger picture. Okay, so we've done 3 live scans across 3 different lakes in 3 different swims. I just wanted to share with you the screenshot that is now on your screen, as it's a really good example that I've used throughout the shows that we've attended this year, because it gives you a little bit of everything and something to learn from it. So on the screenshot itself, you'll see the purple/red type area. Now this represents a soft lake bed, now an area that is made up of soft silt or any sort of debris along the bottom, something that's not going to get a hard drop when you're casting to it. And then on the opposite side, as you'll be able to see, is a nice glowing lay bed, nice and yellow, a very thin run of purple, and that means it's a nice firm lake bed, but just a very thin run of silt along the top. Now this will allow you to fish potentially 2 or 3 different areas. You could fish into the silt with a a chod rig or an extended helicopter, so you're not ploughing your rig sort of straight into the silt upon the cast. You could fish just on that seam, so just where the gravelly area meets the silt, so right on that edge. Or you could fish outright on the harder gravelly area and fish with solid bags or sort of wafter rigs. So a classic example there of dark meets bright, soft meets hard. So always worth bearing that in mind as general rule of thumb. Now in between the lake bed and the surface layer as well, you can see a number of arches. Now these arches represent fish. And as you can see, they are everything from 2 foot off the bottom, from 2 to 3 foot underneath the surface. And now what this allows you to do again is either fish a rig and a baited patch on the bottom, because the fish are only so far off the lake bed, or you could potentially fish some zigs in mid to the upper waters and adjust your tactics to suit what's going on. So well worth sort of investigating your area. If you're seeing those different colours on the lake bed, then they are representing the different types of hardness that your sonar is scanning over. So well worth interrogating what you've got in front of you, trying 2 or 3 different options, figuring out where the fish are happiest feeding, whether it's in the soft stuff or on the clear stuff. Adjust your rigs suitably and get catching. All right, so we've come to the end of the video. I hope the last handful of examples from my scans have been beneficial to you and knowledgeable. Now, general rule of thumb, just a bit of a recap. The brighter the lake bed, the harder it is. The darker the lake bed, the softer it is. Always look for those sort of humps and bumps. Even on the most barren of swims, you can start to get an idea of depths, lake bed hardness, and all those little bits in between that might help you just put a few extra fish on the bank. So yeah, get a sonar, get out there, get scanning, and start mapping those swims.